Uhuru. Uhuru, everybody. If you all want to go ahead and come and take your seats. I want to welcome everybody to this Uhuru Solidarity event in support of the campaign by the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement to take back MLK Day in the hands of the poor and working class African community. Also want to welcome the people who are watching online. I know there are people all around the nation who have been interested in this campaign. My name is Ann Hirsch, and I am the local chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement St. Pete branch and the USM South Region coordinator. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement is the white organization of the African People's Socialist Party formed by the party as a component of its strategy to extend the struggle for African liberation into the white community, which has benefited from the oppression of black and colonized people for 6 centuries. The party formed the African People's Solidarity Committee and its mass front, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, to win white people to work under the leadership of Black Power, taking up the call for white people to go back into our communities and win other white people like ourselves to take a genuine stance of material solidarity with black self-determination and African liberation. So just a quick few things before we get started. If you'll turn off your cell phones or silence them if you need to have them on. We ask that you don't take any photos or videos unless you're authorized to do so. Please hold your comments until the end of the night. There will be a discussion period. And the bathrooms are to your left, so you go through that door down the hall and they're on the right. So before we get into our program tonight, I want to begin by saluting the founder and leader of the Uhuru movement, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela, whose leadership over the Black Power Blueprint is transforming the conditions of the African community through political and economic empowerment in the hands of African working people. And I also want to salute the team of people that helped to put this event together, did the outreach, did the phone banking, set up tonight, Uhuru. And we want to salute the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee. Penny Hess is here with us tonight. She was the first white person to take up this call by the party to build white solidarity with Black Power over 42 years ago. She leads the African People's Solidarity Committee. And it's because of her that because of the party and then her stance and her leadership that we're all here. And we also want to salute Jesse Nevel, the national chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And he ran for mayor in St. Petersburg in 2017 on the revolutionary platform of unity through reparations, and he was known as the Uhuru candidate. And also want to give a special shout out to our guest speaker, Akilé, Anai, and we'll tell you more about her in a moment. And I want to point out that we are in Akwaaba Hall. This is one of the self-determination institutions of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, and we're grateful for them allowing us to use this beautiful and historic venue in South St. Petersburg tonight. It is an honor for us to be here. So we began this event, we said Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. Or as a young woman in Seattle and St. Louis says, Swahili is, how does she say that? Oh. Uhuru is a Swahili word for freedom. Okay, she says anyway. I'm going to go on now because I didn't do good with that. Sorry. Okay, so now please welcome our first speaker, Director of Agitation and Propaganda for the African People's Socialist Party, Akilé Anai. She ran for District 6 City Council in 2017, making a profound impact on the city's ability to do business as usual, because she was standing firmly for Black economic development, reparations, as well as Black community control of the police, Black community control of schools, housing, and the ability to feed, clothe, and house. So we welcome Akilé Anai.
Uhuru! Unity through?
Reparation!
Uhuru. Well, I first really want to appreciate Comrade Ann for that introduction, and also her leadership around the local Uhuru Solidarity Movement branch in St. Petersburg, Florida. And just to say that Ann's been with us for a very long time around the Uhuru movement, and it's just, you know, good to see her up here today leading this local work. And also want to start by saluting my leadership, Chairman Amalia Shatella, for he's the reason why I'm able to get up here and say everything that it is I'm going to say today. Also want to appreciate just the ability to be able to speak to you all about, one, the victory of the Uhuru movement and the African community at large around the situation with MLK Day, and also want to recognize Chairwoman Penny Hess and Comrade Jesse Nevel. And before I get into my presentation around MLK Day, I really want to already acknowledge the chairman, but just to say that this strategy of white solidarity with Black power is something that was unheard of before Chairman introduced it to the world. And it's really important for us to understand that concept because it did not exist. And you know, there was an amazing movement that was happening in this country led by African working class people. It was a struggle for Black power and self-determination in the 60s, and we saw, you know, that manifest in so many different ways, but the struggle was fierce and the world was engaged in revolutionary struggle. But the US government crushed this revolution in the 60s with, you know, any means that they had. They crushed the Black revolution of the 60s. And what helped to crush it was the participation of what was supposed to be the progressive white people, the white people that, you know, loved Black people so much, and they have Black friends, and they love Black culture and all these different kinds of things, but didn't want to organize under the leadership of African people. And when the U.S. government launched this whole assault on the Black Revolution of the 60s, including the assassination of Martin Luther King, these white people turned their backs on the Black Revolution and became a part of the lynch mob, the U.S. government lynch mob. They became them. The white left became them. They hijacked the movements and used the momentum of the Black Revolution to start their own movements, to gain access to, white power imperialism, to just gain pieces of the pie. And at the expense of the struggle for African self-determination and at the expense of all African people, period. And what Chairman did since he came into the struggle for the past 50 years has been solving the problems of the revolution. And one of these problems was the white left, the problem of the Black revolution being isolated, having no access to the resources that are hoarded in the white community, and also this question of white people where it was taken out of the abstract and made real. How do we define white people? How, who are white people? How did this identity even come into existence? And what does that mean in the context of the rest of the peoples of the world, including especially African people? And so the theory of African internationalism helped to answer that question. And so not only did Chairman sum up that white people are people and have the ability to be one to their own long-term interests by uniting with the Black power struggle, but we have this whole question of reparations. Where was it going to come from? Do we have to wait for the U.S. government to sign a check, which they'll never do, because reparations to African people means that the whole overturning of the social system, because the basis of the system's existence is on the backs of African people and all the stolen wealth, the lives, and the resources. So are we going to wait for a U.S. government to cut a check? Are we going to keep it in the courtrooms and the classrooms? Or are we going to make reparations a real material reality? And Chairman Omali Yeshitela did it. He made reparations happen. He said it can happen. This is how white people can participate in material solidarity with Black power. No charity politics, no well-wishing. I don't want you to hold my hand. I want you to take a material stance. I want you to be an African internationalist. I want you to be Black power in white face. And he created this movement that is unstoppable today, where white power has to look its own population in the face, and these white people are saying, no more genocide in my name, no more gentrification, no more police murders of Black children in my name, no more theft of stolen African resources in my name. White power now has to deal with its own white people contending with it now, because Chairman Omali Yeshitela introduced that to the world. It's a very, very important thing for us to understand, because people they say all these different things about the white solidarity movement. They talk about the Uhuru solidarity movement, and they explain in these ways, and without realizing that this strategy changed everything. It really changed the way the Black Revolution would ever be carried out. And it is a strategy in the arsenal of the African liberation movement. It is something that can never be reversed, and that the movement for white reparations to African people is only going to continue to grow as a result of what Chairman Omali Yeshitela did, well over 40 years ago. So I just want to salute Chairman for that, and that every one of us in this room are here today because of the brilliance of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and African internationalism, which is what we are. We're African internationalists. I'm a member of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement, and it is an honor to be a member of the African People's Socialist Party, and to be under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and to be an African internationalist, because we can actually see the world as it really is, not how we want it to be, not how we think it should, how it really is, and then what we need to do to overturn it, which has led us to be able to stand here today and say we were victorious in winning the struggle for taking back MLK Day. We were victorious in taking back MLK Day because African internationalism exists and told us this is how we're going to take this back. Because MLK Day in St. Petersburg, Florida sees its largest celebration, not because white people celebrate MLK Day, but because the African community right here in St. Pete holds the largest celebration in this country for the African martyr, Martin Luther King, an African nation hero who was assassinated by the U.S. government. This Black community held that celebration. And over the years, the city government does what it always does when it's attempting to, just strip the Black community of every single thing, every semblance of, self-determination, any means of economic development. What the city government does is try to snatch away MLK Day, and not even try to, were effective. Over the course of the years, occupying the Black community with police, the celebration would get, shorter and shorter in time. They rerouted the whole parade to go downtown for white people to enjoy, take it right off of MLK Street, which doesn't make any sense. Which, by the way, if you look throughout many cities in this country, including places like Seattle and Portland, where we just came from and did this amazing speaking tour, this, MLK Street was always in the African community. Like when you say MLK Street, it was always by the African community. And in those cities, the African population has been wiped out from MLK Street. So it's not this coincidence. Everywhere we see, there's an MLK Street, the African community is there. Yeah. And so they take this struggle, city government commits this assault and attempts to take this struggle. And, last year was the most overt assault the U.S. government, the St. Petersburg city government has ever made on the Black community in terms of, the struggle with MLK Day. And, the police lockdown of this community, is described as something that looks like how the military deploys itself in, places like Palestine, Afghanistan, and Iran. this kind of, like, you would think, there was just a war going on, that was happening in this community. But no, it was just the police locking down this community, making sure that the Black community couldn't come out and celebrate Martin Luther King and come out and vend and, engage in some, in economic development, sell, buy, and trade amongst ourselves, which is the only opportunity that we have to do it. And instead they rerouted everything to go to the Tropicana Field baseball stadium, which we know has a hell of a history. When we're looking at the assault on the Black community here in St. Pete, they destroyed this community that was the gas plant district, one of the oldest Black communities in this city, destroyed it, crushed 100 businesses, and destroyed, homes of 800 people and displaced them, and then built a parking lot where white people can park and go to the baseball games over a Black graveyard. And now they redirected all the festivities to the Tropicana Field, which is, a police staging ground, corrals all the Black people, in this dome that literally rests on the ashes of a Black community. So it's this real offensive and a real offense against the Black community. And so we understood that we had a responsibility, especially seeing this situation of gentrification intensify, because the African community here is experiencing it. It's heat, you can't escape it. You walk out of your community. The other day, we were interviewing with the Burning Spear on Black Pride 96, this brother on a bicycle who's talking about this white man who just, is a gentrifier in their community, who shoots their gun and, shooting at Africans and all these different kinds of things, this white nationalist in our own backyard in this community. And this is what Africans have to put up with. This African said, I work, all these hours a day, all I do, and I come home, and then this white man is out shooting in my community. And this white man doesn't face any kind of penalties for coming into the Black community and then, waving his gun around, but, an unarmed African man can get gunned down, shot, in the middle of the street, and be served as an example for everybody if Black people attempt to resist. So, this is the kind of assault that's been committed on the Black community. And it's this thing that we recognize that the same thing was happening with this MLK Day struggle, but this was an ability to create, it could kick off a social movement here in St. Pete, because that's what the city needs, and that's what we began. We started with the elections that we ran in 2017, where I ran for City Council District 6 and Jesse Nevel ran for mayor, because it was the beginnings of a social movement. It was the beginnings of shaking the status quo, where people could not do business as usual, and the fate of the Black community could not be left to the crooks in City Hall, around, people sitting around these desks and determining what the future is for the Black community, that we are not only going to determine our own futures, but we're going to fight to take our community back. Because you walk outside and just go 5 minutes down the street, and you see the development and the encroachment upon the Black community and what the city plans to do. You don't even have to be in a city council meeting to see this is a reality, and they plan to take everything that's in this community. They've already taken everything that's in this community. And, through police violence and murders and stuffing Africans into prison and, not having access to food, clothing, shelter, and all these kinds of things, that will push a community out totally. And that's what they plan to do. So we knew that we had to respond to this MLK Day situation. We had to respond. We couldn't let anybody put the narrative on it. We couldn't let anybody define the demands for the Black community. That we had to go out, win the demands of our community, and the Black community was going to have to fight for MLK Day. And that's exactly what we did, which is why the police conceded, saying that vendors are allowed to come onto 9th Street. We have taken back MLK Day for the Black community. So. And it was the work, and make no mistake, it was the work of this campaign, because, these people who work and, rub elbows with the city government officials will claim the victory for themselves, when it was this movement, it was the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement, going out every day, getting petitions, meeting every morning, strategizing and saying, how are we going to make this happen? Phone banking, even the work of the Uhuru Solidarity movement to win it out into the white community of standing in solidarity with this campaign. It was we out-organize everyone, all the time. And it was through the work of this movement that this victory was able to happen. And so I want to, really make that clear. It was the work of the Uhuru movement that made this victory possible. And this victory is an example of, what is possible, what the African community can win when we engage and struggle and push back. We can be victorious. that these people, the big money and all, what looks like intimidation, they have to fall back when it comes to a social movement. When they see a wave of people in disgust with what's happening, but not only disgusted by it, but are willing to fight against it, they have to put their hands up. They have to stand back. Because they're going to receive a huge pushback. That's exactly what they did. They are afraid of what the black community is even capable of. They've seen in 1996 what the black community can do, what we're capable of, and what we're willing to do to go to the ends to defend this movement and defend this community. And so this is what is possible. And I want everybody to really understand this, because sometimes we get demoralized and we can't, see, and we see all this stuff happening and we think, well, we can't do anything about it. We're just small, we can't. No, we get together, we organize, we join these communities, we join this movement, and we can be a part of something so much greater that can take down the enemy, that can really defeat it, that can make them concede, that can make them do all these things. It is possible. And despite having, seized this victory, this movement has to go beyond MLK Day. Because MLK Day is just one example of how this city government has attacked this community. And, you look at it, like I mentioned, MLK Day is the one day where black people can come out and vend, come out in large numbers. We got our swag on, we bring our cars out, we showboat, and we having a good time being black, undisturbed being black. And the city assaulted that. But that's the contradiction. One day, Africans are here 365 days out of the year, and we're catching hell for every single one of them. And we get one day. That is a contradiction. Africans should be able to live in this city, be able to feed, clothe, and house ourselves, be able to engage in economic development, self-determination, political and economic power. We should have those things every single day. White people do. The white community does. They get to enjoy the spoils of that all the time. In fact, everything they have is as a result of what they have taken from this community. Living at the black community's expense. Get to enjoy beer on a Wednesday morning downtown while the black community is suffering. That is the reality we're confronted with 365 days a year. So one day is not enough for my community. One day is not enough. And we celebrate this victory, but we celebrate it because that means there's more victories to come. That we have a responsibility to stay in this fight for the long haul until the status quo has been completely shaken, completely disrupted, and they cannot conduct business as usual. We have to all take responsibility for the future of the black community, because everybody's lives are at stake when the black community's lives are at stake. You lose everything when the black community is at risk. Every single thing. White business owners right now in downtown are crying foul and crying gentrification when the black community was the warning of what would happen to you. Because now the city government is allowing all this big money to flood in, all these millionaires from freaking New York and Miami to come buy up, all the land and turn this place into a playhouse for the rich. Kicking everybody out. And this is where they will come. They will stay in these condos. They will eat at these fancy restaurants. This is where they're going to reside. And the whole surface is going to change. That's why the social movement has to continue beyond MLK Day. So this is the fire. This is to ignite us, to get us ready for the battles that are up ahead. Because it's a mountain that we have to go up. But reaching the top of the mountain is, all the fun. So, this is what we're engaged in. And, the police, they say that, the reason that they have to lock down the community is for, the black community's safety. And there's this whole white nationalist saying that, black people kill themselves more on MLK Day and, all this kind of stuff. But of course, they don't talk about the violence that white people participate in on, these random holidays like St. Patrick's Day and, even the Pride Week and all these different things that white people do, and the fighting and I don't know how many white people have their stomach pumped, on these days, and, how many murders are happen on these days, because we know white people murder, white people have access to all guns, so we know that this thing is happening, but those things are never reported, and they do this thing under the guise of public safety, but of course, it's public safety for white people, because it's scary for white people to see all these black people congregating in their own community, because what could they be planning? They could be planning to take back their resources, take back their community. And, white people don't have to be afraid of that. So, the situation in the black community, say you want to protect, the black community from the violence and all this kind of stuff. Well, the situation we live in is violent. Gentrification is violent. Police occupation is violent. The nutritional and economic starvation of a community is violent. You try being in a community that's economically starved and has a heavy military police presence, and then you decide to be peaceful or not. So the situation here is violent all the time, which is why we have to be engaged in the struggle every single day, why we have to organize, why we have to join this movement every single day. And I want to say we have to join this movement in particular. That's not enough to join whatever's out there. Because, the Democratic Party ain't it. Because Rick Kreisman is the one who intensified that police attack on the black community. The Democratic Party did that. That regime did those things. It's not enough to call yourself progressive and then go with the guy who seems anti-Trump. No, that's not enough. The movement to be a part of is the Uhuru movement. The Uhuru movement is the movement we have to be a part of. Because the Uhuru movement has always, since its founding, since Chairman Maulana Chatela pulled this whole thing together, has always fought for the black community. Always. Has never compromised. Has always fought for the black community and empowering us against vicious state attacks all the time, giving us the ability, 1996, that was political, motivation to go out there and be able to stand up against a military of 300 police officers and be completely courageous and have them saying, pull back the troops, run heavy fire, shoot down a police helicopter, all these things. It has to be some real political unity in that community to be able to carry that out, especially when a community is always being terrorized and under siege. So it's been the Uhuru movement to always do this, and always push back against the state, even when the state is attacking us. And the state comes in many different forms. It's not always the police. It did with the badge and everything like that. The state comes in many different forms, including people that look like, me, people who used to be around us. It looks like everyone who would come and disrupt what this movement has going on. A movement that has uncompromisingly fought for the interests of the African working class and all of African people. That is the state. No matter how you put it, it is the state. And, and they don't attack Kreisman. They didn't attack what was happening with the city government trying to take MLK Day. They were fighting against the movement that was trying to take back MLK Day. That is the state. You are trying to stop the progress of the black community to make any kind of succession in this community. And you're not attacking the ones who are making the military assault, who are literally starving this community. You don't attack them. You don't attack the police, who are killing the kids, who are Kreisman's puppets, who have to do all the law enforcement. You don't attack them, but you attack the only black-led movement that's doing anything about it. Because it wasn't the preachers and the politicians in the back rooms making deals that made this happen. It was the struggle of the Uhuru movement, the leadership of the Uhuru movement that made it happen. And if you would stand between the Uhuru movement and the people, you are the state. Clear as day. That's it. This movement that is growing around the world is going to be under the same attacks as the Black Revolution of the 60s was, because this movement is continuing the Black Revolution of the 60s. We're coming under the same kinds of attacks that King came under. We are coming under those attacks because we are continuing the legacy of people like King. So the state comes out in full force to bring this movement down. And, it's just, we have to be able to call it out and see it for what it is. That, all these things that are happening right now in the world where, the only positive thing that's happening is being led by the Uhuru movement. Everywhere you look. In St. Pete, with the struggles here happening with MLK Day, with St. Louis, and this beautiful, vibrant project, the Black Power Blueprint, and the amazing work that we do in our economic institutions in Oakland and in Philadelphia, and even the work that our comrades do in occupied Tanzania in South Africa, and all just this, you see the development of this movement is vibrant, it's young, it's beautiful, and it's growing, and of course, it's going to come under some serious assault. It's going to come under the most vicious assault because, the period of African freedom is on the horizon. It's so close. And imperialism knows it. And imperialism, when backed in a corner, lashes out. And it's violent and it expresses itself in all these different ways. And so we're going to see some of the most brutal attacks during this period. And the difference is they won't be able to win this time. They won't win. They won't win because Chairman Omali Yeshitela has solved these problems. And that's why we have been able to be victorious for so long. What other movement do you know can have 30 economic institutions in this and be a revolutionary organization? There's no other organization on the planet that's like it. And it's because African internationalism has given us the ability to do that, to pave that way, to make that happen. So it's not going to go down like it did in the 60s. They won't be able to kill King and kill an entire revolution. It won't happen. And it won't happen because the strategy of white people going into the belly of the beast and becoming a part of the struggle, becoming African internationalists, that is a strategy. It can never, like I said, it can change the face of how this revolution can even happen. Chairman Omali Yeshitela did that. And I'm getting the times up from Comrade Johan. But I really wanted to just everyone in this room, if you're not a part of this movement, I really have to ask, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Because this is it. There is no other future outside of this. And that the Black community, no matter what, is going to fight to be free. But not only are we going to fight, we're going to win. And you have to say which side of the line you want to be on. Do you want to look colonized people in the face on the opposite side of the line and, be an enemy of the colonized people, of African people who are inevitably going to destroy the system? Or do you want to be alongside the people, alongside African people winning the struggle to take back MLK Day? Do you want to be the one who killed King, or do you want to be the ones who uphold King, continue his legacy, be like King in this struggle? You have to make a decision. And that decision is before us today, and you are able to make that decision today. So I really want to just appreciate being able to, speak to everyone today. I really want to appreciate being able to celebrate this victory. Again, salute my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and salute the strategy of white solidarity with Black power. Uhuru.
Thank you, Akilé. Let's give her another round of applause. Thank you for that powerful summation. Really appreciate you being here tonight. Now I want to welcome to the podium Jessie Nevel, the National Chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Jessie.
Uhuru. Unity through? All right, Uhuru, let's give another round of applause to Professor Akilé, Anai, for that stellar presentation, as always. And it was an honor, incredible honor, to have also just returned from Seattle and Portland, where Director Akilé spoke as well. And I also want to echo the salute of our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Uhuru, as well as Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, and the entire African People's Socialist Party, and as well as my direct leadership, APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess. Uhuru. Okay, I think the mic is working. So I just wanted to appreciate the opportunity to be at this event and welcome everyone, appreciate everybody for being here. And just in terms of talking about the campaign that the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement just led, it was an amazing campaign. It was absolutely amazing. And as we just heard from Director Akilé, it was triumphant in pushing back the vicious St. Pete City government under the Kreisman regime and forcing the Kreisman regime to back off and allow for African vendors to vend along private property on Martin Luther King Street. So that was a tremendous victory, and it shows you that the leadership of the Black working class, combined with the strategy of going into the white community, the strategy that Akilé just talked about, is a strategy that is designed to win. and it does win. And this is just one concrete example of that. And I wanted to just salute the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement for that amazing campaign that they led, which involved many, many different components. And one thing that has to be recognized, which was mentioned earlier, was the role of Black Power 96 radio station in this campaign, because Black Power 96.3 radio station, which is located here in the Uhuru House and broadcast as an FM station that broadcasts throughout Southside St. Pete and beyond. You know, if you tuned into 96.3 over the past few weeks, you know what I'm talking about. You heard African people from the community talking about how outraged they were. You know, Black Power 96 represented the voice of the African working class. You could hear the people telling in their own voices, their own stories, how pissed they were. You know, how outraged they were that last year, you go out to celebrate Martin Luther King, this black hero who was assassinated by the US government. You can't have vendors, you know, the cops are everywhere. It looked like a war zone. It was a war zone. They were rerouting people into Tropicana Field, and people were outraged. You know, this is one of the largest MLK parades in the country. Over 100,000 African people come out for the St. Petersburg, Florida Martin Luther King parade. So Black Power 96 is part of why they backed up. The city government backed up. Another reason why the city government backed up is because of the role played by Director Akilé and the local African People's Socialist Party in Impedum that, you know, led this campaign. Temba Shabanda, as well, from the radio station Uhuru to Temba Shabanda, that put out tons of propaganda, tons of literature all over the city of St. Pete. Flyers, posters, Take Back MLK Day, you know, galvanizing the community, bringing the community into this process, getting hundreds of petitions signed, mobilizing a call-in campaign to call the mayor's office and demand that the city, you know, abide by these demands and lay off and stop the attacks on and police lockdown of the black community. And then Director Akilé actually went to, there was a press conference that was held in front of City Council. It was a very powerful press conference that, of course, the media did not report on, but it was an amazing press conference. And then Akilé went inside to this little private meeting that they were having about what, then the police chief was there and all the cops were there and all the sellouts, and they were talking about what they were gonna do on Martin Luther King Day. And one of the guys slipped up and said, when we bring in all the cops to shut down King Street, and then the police chief butt in and said, no, we're not saying, that's not shut down, we're not shutting it down, we're slowing it down. And the other guy goes, oh yeah, shut down, poor choice of words, I meant slow down, not shut down. So there's a Freudian slip, you know, and they revealed what they were planning to do. They were planning to shut down the black community on Martin Luther King Day. Then Director Akilé stood up during the public comment section, gave an amazing statement similar to what you just heard, and then they said, okay, meeting adjourned, and wrapped up the meeting. So they knew it was like the black working class was invading their territory and making its demands and aspirations known. So and the Uhuru movement put out flyers and stuff on social media calling for 10,000 black guerrilla shock troops to come to St. Pete to function as a countermeasure against the colonial police occupation of the South Side. So all this is going on, right? Then the Uhuru movement sends USM St. Pete under the leadership of Comrade Ann Hirsch here, so I want to salute Comrade Ann, into the white community. So all of this is happening, and then USM St. Pete gets deployed into the whitest of the white community. I mean, we went into like all kinds of neighborhoods, you know, all different socioeconomic aspects of the white community, and Ann coordinated. They did hundreds, if not thousands, of drops and thousands of flyers put out, and, you know, mobilized hundreds of people to call in, including tourists that were outraged, that are like, I'm never coming to St. Pete again, that called into the mayor's office, jamming up his phone lines, putting stuff out on social media, and even building for events like this one. This was the strategy of the party that went into the, you know, the black working class and went into the white community, and the city government was isolated and they were surrounded. You know, they had no choice but to back up, and that's what happened. So it was amazing, and it's so clear that, you know, what they were planning to do, and who knows what's going to happen on Martin Luther King Day, but what they were talking about doing, that would never happen in the white community, and we know that. I mean, you see Pride, you know, tens of thousands, if not more, white people, mostly white people coming out, drinking, doing drugs, you know, half naked, etc. And the police are doing that also, you know. If anything, they're not, no one's getting arrested. They're just, if they're even there, they're part of the parade. And then the St. Patrick's Day, you know, St. Patrick's Day is another thing. You go out St. Patrick's Day, man. I went for a walk on St. Patrick's Day. I got puked on. Somebody threw a beer at my head. You know, this is the white community. And the cops were babysitting with the drunk white people. Literally like, come here, have a seat in the car, you know, you'll be okay. And meanwhile, they have a thing in North St. Pete, in the downtown St. Pete, called Sip and Stroll. In the middle of the afternoon on a weekday, white people can just go from business to business and sip a little wine and go here and do some what's it called, craft beer or whatever. This is what's happening. Meanwhile, on the other side of Central Avenue, a black man will go to prison for having a can of beer or whatever arbitrary thing the police decide to lock him up for. So it's very obvious that there's two St. Petersburgs, and that's why it's so important that the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the white organization of the African People's Socialist Party of the Uhuru Movement, was part of this strategy to go in and expose the truth to other white people like ourselves about what's happening, and you know, give white people in the city the opportunity to separate ourselves from our false, corrupt leadership. Kreisman is not our leadership. City Hall is not our leadership. The city government is not our leadership. Our leadership is Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Our leadership is Akilé. Our leadership is the black working class. They speak for us, not Kreisman, not the St. Pete Police Department, not the Tampa Bay Times, but we wouldn't have the opportunity to make that statement if not for this movement and if not for this campaign. And we saw that. We were out at First Night, which was New Year's Eve, and I was there, and Jackson was there, and Ann, and Chairwoman Penny, and other people. Was Jamie there? I know Jamie and Johan did tables as well. There was a lot of tabling going on, but this particular night, we were out there, so this is the night before. This is, New Year's Eve, right? And again, it's a lot of drinking. Some of the white people that would come over to sign up, you like take a step back because the booze is so strong. But most of the people we talked to were very supportive. We got a lot of people to sign up, and people, especially tourists, they were like, what the hell? They did what? They were disgusted when they heard about what the St. Pete police in the city did to the black community last year. They're like, why can't they just have their parade? What's the problem? And they were the ones who called in, a lot of them, and lots of other white people that we met out there. And by the way, there were no cops. There was thousands of people, but no cops, except for one guy that was walking back and forth throughout the night. So it was a really powerful campaign, and it was an honor to be a part of it. And I just want to salute the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement and also the local Uhuru Solidarity Movement for the amazing work that demonstrated the power of an organized movement under the leadership of the black working class fighting back and winning. So, how much time do I have?
You had time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to quickly talk about the city of St. Pete for people who are possibly new to the city or don't know that much about its history, that, this is not the first time that the Uhuru movement has taken on the city government and pushed them back and won. And this is kind of what the Uhuru movement does. The Uhuru movement has a long track record. Part of why the city of St. Petersburg is home to one of the largest MLK parades in the country is because there's a strong history in this city of a civil rights movement that evolved into a black power movement in the 1950s and 1960s. Central to that was our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, who at the time was known as Joseph Waller, who was a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was one of the leading black power movements during the civil rights era especially, who changed everything. He made history in this city when he went into City Hall, where there was a racist mural hanging from the wall in City Hall. And at the height of the black power struggle in the 60s, he tore down that mural and marched through the streets to, protest not just the mural, but the overall degradation and humiliation that African people were forced to endure in the city. And he was locked up, put on a chain gang, ended up serving almost 3 years behind bars for an act of civil disobedience, that he carried out to oppose the local government's injustices against the black community. So that, and also, after that happened, while he was in prison, he formed an organization called the Junta of Militant Organizations, JOMO. JOMO played a critical role in the sanitation workers' strike in the city, where hundreds of black sanitation workers went on strike for 4 months and basically brought the city to a screeching halt to protest the horrific conditions, working conditions and exploitation that they were facing within the sanitation department. And Jomo and Chairman Amalia Shatella was the political leadership of the sanitation workers strike. And I would remind you that the last demonstration that Martin Luther King participated in before he was assassinated was a sanitation workers march. So you can see the parallels, you can see the historical significance of this city that we live in, which has always been a city of black resistance under the leadership of the African working class. So fast forward to 1996, Director Akilé mentioned this, where the city so St. Pete police murdered a young African named Tyrone Lewis and murdered him in broad daylight. And the African community of St. Petersburg rose up in a heroic rebellion. This was before Ferguson, there was no social media, there were no hashtags or anything, and the African working class rose up in a serious, serious uprising that got the attention of the Clinton administration. They sent in the HUD secretary to meet with the chairman and everything, and it was national news. It was a huge rebellion. And then after they acquitted the 2 white cops that murdered this African teenager, there was another wave of rebellion. And prior to that one, there was a meeting like this one that was being called by the chairman, where he was calling all the Africans together to talk about the next steps in fighting back against what was going on. And the police with 300 cops surrounded this building. They sprayed tear gas into this building. They had helicopters flying around. They were trying to light the building on fire. They were trying to kill the leaders of the Uhuru movement inside this building. And the community came out, the black community came out and fought back and brought down a police helicopter and pushed back the 300 cops. And they actually, like Akilé mentioned, they had to actually say over the radio transmission, pull back, the troops were under heavy fire. So this is not the first time that the Uhuru movement has forced the city to pull back its troops. That's, the tradition, the revolutionary tradition. So then, shortly after that, I'm giving you like a Reader's Digest version of this history, because there's a lot that can be talked about. But shortly after that, the Uhuru movement, the chairman, became very involved in raising up the demand for economic development for the black community, a public policy of economic development versus a public policy of police containment. And the chairman actually ran for mayor of this city and won every single black precinct except for one in the city of St. Petersburg, which means that if the black precincts of St. Pete could have voted for their own mayor, Chairman Amalia Shatella would have been the mayor of Black St. Pete, because he overwhelmingly won the black vote in that election. And it was during this time he raised up the demand for economic development versus a public policy of police containment. And this became a massive popular demand that reflected the struggle of the African working class. And then a lot of stuff has happened since then. A couple of things I wanted to mention really quick, just in terms of the resistance of the African community that some people might remember. I think it was in 2011, there was a spate of shootings that happened where actually cops died at the hands of, allegedly, at the hands of Africans that they were trying to kill, who fought back and resisted. And one of them was, according to them, was a young African man named Nicholas Lindsay, and another was an African man named Hydra Lacey. And with Hydra Lacey, and I think it was Bill Foster was the mayor at the time, so when Nicholas Lindsay, when that happened, and a white cop who was notorious for drug peddling and all kinds of things in the homeless community, I mean, he was notorious, horrible, horrible tyrant, this guy, Officer David Crawford, as they called him, and he was killed. And Hydra Lacey was named as the suspect, and they did a military occupation of the black community. I was here, I saw it, I took pictures of it. They used the Tropicana Field parking lot as a military staging ground, and they invaded the black community. They had SWAT teams, assault weapon-toting SWAT team going door to door. Children were standing outside like, what's going on? They were going on buses, searching black people in buses. This is what was going on in the city of St. Pete. It was exactly like something you would see in Afghanistan or anywhere else under U.S. military occupation. And then with Hydra Lacey, same thing happened where actually no one knows what happened with Hydro Lacy, because all we know is 4 cops died and then he died, or in some order. The reason why we don't know what happened is because they bulldozed his house. The mayor bulldozed his house, which is what they do, which is what the Israeli government does to people in Palestine, in Gaza. Somebody who's accused of or suspected of being involved in the resistance or whatever, they go to their family's house and they bulldoze it. Okay, that's what they did to this man. They bulldozed his house to destroy the evidence of what actually happened in that building. Literally, minutes after he was dead, they came in and boom, blew it down, and then carted away to a dump site all of the pieces of his house. And, you know, the chairman, Omali Shatella, and the Uhuru movement was fiercely involved in waging demonstrations. The chairman spoke at his funeral and, you know, raised up that this act of resistance that Hydro Lacy carried out continues the resistance against colonial domination that Jesus Christ himself, you know, carried out against Roman domination. So this is the history of the Uhuru movement. And then, of course, you know, in 2017, we saw one of the most incredible examples of the Uhuru movement strategy to you know, raise up the righteous demand of the black community for self-determination and to win white people to unite with that, which was the election campaign that was carried out where Director Akilé ran for city council and I was asked to run for mayor of the city, and it was a campaign that called for unity through reparations. It was a campaign spearheaded by young African working class people, but it also involved hundreds, if not more, white people who were electrified, whose lives were literally given hope and meaning by the vision of a city and a world united through reparations and justice for the black community. And that's the solution to every single problem that we face, whether it's a sewage crisis or housing costs or anything else that we face. The solution is to be found in the struggle of African people for their self-determination and for reparations. And that was the campaign where hundreds of white people marched down the streets of downtown St. Petersburg chanting unity through reparations behind the leadership of Akilé and the African working class. This was days after less white people than that marched with tiki torches in Charlottesville saying whatever they were saying. That got national media attention, but literally we had more white people in St. Pete than they had, and they were saying reparations to the black community, and that, of course, didn't get much media attention. So anyway, I just wanted to close out by, again, appreciating everybody for being here at this event and saying that the struggle is not over and that we have a responsibility, white people, to join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. If you're already a member, become more active. You know, think about what more you can do, what leadership roles you can take on in the local branch. We have an amazing local branch under Anne's leadership. It does a lot of incredible work. It's constantly doing outreach and all kinds of events, fundraisers, and you can bring your own ideas. If you have ideas for places we can speak, different kinds of cultural events we can do. We have a campaign called the Reparations Challenge, where any type of, you know, social or cultural activity that you want to do that can become a fundraiser, you know, you can do that, and, you know, get involved in building the mass movement for white reparations to African people. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say, that, you know, this is the strategy that has been put in place since 1976 when the party built the Solidarity Movement. It's a party that is winning. This is the African Revolution. This is what it means. This is what they're attacking. This is what the counterinsurgency wants to bring down, because it represents the last hope not only for the African working class but for all of humanity. So we have to get involved in this. We have to build this. And I wanted to close out by inviting all of you to St. Louis, Missouri, April 13th and 14th. You should come. You should seriously consider coming. And if you need to figure out transportation, talk to us. We'll work with you. We want to figure it out to make sure everybody can get there, because this is our national convention of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Chairman Omali Shatella himself will be speaking there, as well as APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess. And you'll get to be, you know, in the company of USM members and supporters from throughout the country and even beyond. You know, we're working on getting people there from Australia, and this is called White Solidarity with Black Power. Again, it's our national convention that we hold every year, April 13th and 14th, Saturday and Sunday, in St. Louis, in the Uhuru House, in St. Louis. So consider coming to that, and you can talk to us more about that. So thank you, everybody, and I really appreciate, you know, Director Akilé's amazing presentation and all of you comrades for being here. Uhuru.
Jesse. Thank you for that presentation. That's given me a really nice, okay. So now we've come to the part where you get to participate in a big way. So our purpose in USM is to build white solidarity with campaigns of the Uhuru movement, such as this important campaign, Take Back MLK Day, in the hands of the Black community. And we want to salute Impedim's victory that you heard about tonight. But also, as you heard tonight, there is so much more work to be done. This campaign, a great victory for poor and working class Black communities' ability to have economic development, is just a small part of the bigger picture. The African People's Socialist Party continues to work for economic development, not police containment, for Black community control of police, to build Black community self-determination institutions to battle the ongoing disparities faced by this community and all the others like it around the USA and around the world. And you have in your packet a Black Power Blueprint brochure, which will show you some of the institutions of this movement. So the most important part of our work in USM is to raise reparations. We know that we can't just say, oh, sorry, let's be friends. You know, we need to create justice. We need to return what has been stolen. And that's what we're called on to do. That's the stand we take in USM, because we want to be a part of a different kind of a world. So our goal tonight is to raise $300 towards the ongoing political and economic work of the poor and working class African community. And there are a number of ways that you can pay reparations. First of all, you can become a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. You can pay a one-time membership fee, or we encourage you to become a sustaining member. So that can be your first step of solidarity, is you pay a monthly sustaining membership to support economic development campaigns and institutions and these kind of political campaigns that push back against oppression and create space for the Black community. So if you'll turn now to the back of your program, I want to talk to you about the membership options. So there is a yearly membership. If you're a student, you can pay $10 and become a member. And if you're just a regular white person who's not a student, you can become a member for $25. David is at the back table, and he can take payments online, or you can pay in cash. But there's also sustaining memberships. So you'll see the list there of monthly sustaining memberships. So, you know, if you think about, you listen to your radio and, you know, they have drives every so often to sustain the work. Well, that's what you can do in the Uhuru movement. You can become a sustaining member for self-determination projects. So I'm going to read off the different levels, and then I'm going to find out who would like to join tonight. So for $5 a month, you can be a Steve Biko sustainer. For $10 a month, a Che Guevara sustainer. For $15, Huey Newton sustainer. For $20, Queen Nzanga. $25 a month is the Keturah Carey level. $30 a month is the Malcolm X level. $40 is the Fannie Lou Hamer. $60 is Marcus Garvey. $100 a month is Ella Baker, and that's a very popular one. $417 a month is the Kwame Nkrumah level, and $2,084 a month is the Omalia Shatella level. So I wanted to find out, is there anybody here who would like to join tonight who is not already a member, or if there's any members who want to increase if you're a sustainer? And online also, you can let us know if there's anybody who wants to join. As well, like I said, our goal is to raise $300 tonight, and I'd like to find out if anyone would like to contribute the whole $300. We know there's a lot of resources in the white community, and you know, we've had people contribute more than this. Anybody tonight? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to contribute $100? $100, Dorothy, thank you very much. I really appreciate that stand. $100 for justice for the Black community. $100 to support these kind of campaigns that push back, and now people are going to be able to be on MLK. They're going to be able to bend. They're going to be able to celebrate in the tradition that the Black community has established here for the last 30 years. So that $100 goes to those kinds of campaigns. Thank you very much, Dorothy. And so we got a donation or a contribution of reparations earlier tonight, so now we're at $120, which means we have, somebody do the math for me. $180 left to go. So $120 we've raised. We have $180 left to go tonight. So I wanted to see who would like to contribute $50 tonight. Is there anybody who wants to pay $50 for a more just world? All right, Janice Camp, thank you very much. Uhuru. So now we're at 170, so we need to raise another $130. But what about $25? Who can contribute $25 tonight? 30? $30, okay. And David's keeping track of that, so thank you. Jackson, $30 in reparations to support self-determination and justice for the Black community. Is there any, and if you guys can look online as well, see if there's any pledges. And who would like to contribute $25 tonight? Uhuru, and Jesse will contribute $25. So now 95. David, is that where we are? Oh.
Sorry, hold on, let me add that.
All right, David's gonna look and see how much more we have left.
Yeah, another $75.
All right, another $75 to make our goal. So $10. I'm gonna do $10 tonight. And
I did 10, but I want to do 100 to cover it when I get paid.
100?
10 tonight, 100.
All right, Uhuru. So Johan's going to pay 10 tonight, and he's going to pledge 100. Uhuru. Thank you, Johan. You can actually give any amount that you'd like.
Uhuru, my name is Jamie, and I'd like to up my sustainership membership to the Solidarity Movement to the Che Guevara level and Steve Biko. And tonight I can do $10, and then within 1 week I want to do another 20.
Okay, so $10 tonight and another 20.
Is that 10 towards your Che, or is that in addition to upgrading your Che, your sustainable Che?
Yeah, okay, so $10 for your Che Guevara this week. Great. And so we have a Che Guevara sustainer now, and then another $20 next week. And David's going to do 15, Uhuru. So I just really want to salute everybody here who's contributing. You know, this is our opportunity to join the right side of history. This is our opportunity to make a real difference, a tangible difference, with institutions like Black Power Radio, like Akwaaba Hall, and campaigns like Take Back MLK. So this is really exciting. We met and surpassed our goal tonight, so give yourself a hand. This is what solidarity, material solidarity means. This is, well-wishing just doesn't quite get it because it doesn't really change anything. But this changes things, so I really want to salute you. Uhuru through reparations. All right, so wonderful. So tonight you can, John has the basket, so if you want to put your contribution in the basket, you can, or you can see David. Now as we go through the question and answer period, you can go over and make your payments to David one at a time, just kind of look and see if he's there. And I'm not sure how we want to do the question and answer. Director Akilé and Jesse, do you all want to come up here? And okay. And so if you have any questions, now is a good time to ask those questions. Uhuru. So do you want to share a little bit about what the Uhuru movement is doing on MLK Day? I know I was in some of those meetings. I think that's really exciting.
So what we did last year was we had our Freedom Mic 727, which is an African community concert and festival where we had vendors right here in our own lot. So when they occupied this community, you know, we had actually gone and taken the steps to make sure that, you know, Africans had the ability to vend despite the, you know, the city government saying they could not vend. So we launched our first Freedom Mic 727 event, and like I said, it was right here on this lot. Vendors were out here, people were performing right here on our soundstage. Well, this year we're going to take it to Tyron Lewis Community Gym, which is another institution owned by the Uhuru movement, named after Tyron Lewis, who was mentioned today by Jesse. And we're going to have the community concert right there on 9th Street. Vendors will be at our location as well. And we have, you know, all these performances lined up. And that project is being led by Black Power 96 and Comrade Timba Shabanda, who's a station manager. So it's going to be, you know, a really amazing event. And anybody, you know, any African vendor who's out there, if you're online, or a performer, if you want to perform at this local event, you guys go ahead and hit up Black Power 96. Email at info@blackpower96.org. For more information in regards to the Freedom Mic event. But yeah, it's going to be right on the street, so where, you know, the thousands of Africans who are, you know, gathered around and vending and things like that, they'll be able to come to our event, but also be able to sign up to join the Uhuru movement, which is something that no other vendor will have on the MLK street. So, Uhuru.
While both of you were talking, there was really just a burning memory that I would like for you all to share about the 8 years where there was no killing of a black, an African person in the black community. I really just think that was such an incredible time, and I wanted you all to say more about what happened there.
That was Goliath Davis with the police chief then, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Goliath Davis became the police chief.
After the chairman
for mayor.
Yep.
And after the push.
And it ended with Baker.
Yeah, so what Carmen Ann was talking about was the stretch after, you know, which was another victory of the Uhuru movement and all the struggles that we were waging, where, you know, and this police chief who, you know, at the time, you know, had a relationship with the Uhuru movement and seemed to take a stand, you know, on this, you know, on the side of this community in certain ways, and had banned the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department from operating within city limits. And Baker, when he was elected into office, he actually reinitiated the ability for the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department to come into St. Pete, and that's when we saw the murders of Africans, children all over again. And you know, specifically since he brought that policy back, I mean, we saw 6 murders of African children in the year 2016-2017. So between 2016-2017, 6 black kids were killed by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department as a result of Baker coming in and undoing that policy, and Kreisman coming in and continuing the legacy of Baker. So,
yeah, and you know, going back to this public health field, you know, how you were around, it's also into the African community, because that was the public law on the African community, push out black businesses in the area, in the movie theaters and barber shops and all kinds of African controlled businesses. So now it's like when they took it away from MLK, that was the only resource that Africans had, you know, and that's, you know, they know the history of, you know, the public kind of film. And I just want to point that out, that it's a continuation of that attack on African multi-class. And one victory, it's small, but one victory that, that African people have to have that chance of being, but more needs to be done, of course, is that intensification, is the war on the African community.
Yeah, and I mean, it was reported that black vendors make half of their yearly income at MLK Day. So when they take this away from the African community, there's no ability for this community to make any resources. There's literally nothing out here, nothing. And the dome was a bomb on the black community, and the government will paint this picture like, we're so much better off now, and the world is so much more progressive, it's inclusive, and, back then it was segregation, and back then it was bad, but back then there was a community here. Back then there was 100 black-owned businesses that don't exist today. There was a black community where it was an actual community. You know where that community was, and it made the best out of a situation where, because Africans were still colonized, so you still have a community that is not as the standards of a white community, but it was still ours, and it's something that we don't have today. And it's just this real, it's offensive kind of idea that somehow, the progress has been made, but the progress has been made at the expense of the black community. And none of that stuff, none of those businesses exist today. And they did it with the dome, and they did it with an intersection. They drove an intersection right through, a hub of black businesses, and depleted those businesses of, any, traffic and all this kinds of stuff. Redirected everything into the white community, going to the beach, and those businesses, don't exist anymore. So they've been doing this forever, and the Uhuru movement is the only one that has, did have any pushback, but also has succeeded in many different ways in that regard. So, we're the only ones that have these economic institutions in this community. The only real black thing that's in this community that's being surrounded as we speak. We have the kitchen, the radio station, that's here. We have this beautiful Akwaaba Hall space, and that's the only thing that's even left around here anymore. So it's, that's why this movement is so important, because we have to defend these institutions that belong to the black working class. Any more questions? No? All right. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you very much, Akilé and Jesse. So I want to thank both of you for speaking tonight, and for everybody who came out. I want to thank Chairman Omali Shatella, Deputy Chair, and the African People's Socialist Party, and I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. Before we go, Janice Kant, who is the manager of Uhuru Foods and Pies here in St. Petersburg, has announcements.
Thank you, Anne. Just really appreciate this event and the opportunity for us, from the white community to be able to understand and learn more about the history of St. Petersburg and the struggles of the African community, and how we can be part of overturning, that situation and be part of reparations. So I really appreciate this. And just want to invite everyone on your program. There's several announcements. Just wanted to go through them. I know Jesse Nevel explained the Uhuru Solidarity Movement National Convention, April 13th and 14th. And we also, and you can go on to register. You can either see the tables with Uhuru Solidarity Movement. You can register tonight, or go on Facebook, Uhuru Solidarity Movement, to register. The All Diamonds Are Blood Diamonds tour that Uhuru Solidarity Movement is having all over the country is going to be here in St. Petersburg on Friday, March 15th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at Akwaaba Hall, and you can also register on Facebook or tonight. And on Sundays, every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. You can go to the Uhuru TV channel on YouTube and watch Omali Taught Me every Sunday. That's a webinar that is an amazing political education that we all can benefit from every Sunday. There's also the INPEDM, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, has rallies here, open public community meetings every Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m., talking about these kind of campaigns and organizing other actions. And then Uhuru Solidarity Movement, our St. Petersburg branch, has open meetings every Monday, 6 to 8 p.m. at Panera Bread. Right now we're at Panera Bread. We do need a solidarity center, so if anyone who wants to, who sees and knows any kinds of properties that, storefronts that might be appropriate, we would love to be in our own center, that we can be in the white community organized. And there's also every couple of I'm not sure it's every other Tuesday or what the exact schedule, but on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, and it's that may be changing back to 7, but that's going to be a webinar excuse me, for the Black Power Blueprint Live and for Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We have webinars on Tuesday nights, and this one is on Mexico, the colonial border, and indigenous resistance. It's going to be a really great webinar on Tuesday, January 22nd at 8 p.m. And lastly, but not least, every Saturday at the St. Petersburg Saturday morning market downtown at the Rowdy Stadium, you can get breakfast and lunch at Uhuru breakfast and lunch booth, and Uhuru Foods and Pies also has Uhuru Pies. This Saturday, they'll be again on February 2nd, pretty much like every other week or so, at the Saturday morning market. So we invite you to come and eat with us, order pies, volunteer, and get more involved as well as part of our way we can participate in reparations for the African community. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Okay, so we're done for the evening. There's a little bit of snacks. If you have any questions, please approach David or myself or Jamie. We can answer questions. Thank you very much for coming. Uhuru.